It's not a review.
The deal is that he's more comfortable reviewing things that have events, that have
Kept going for
Wasn't sure how to approach this.
2
He's not
minutes or
used to
so.
reviewing
It was an awkward video because I wasn't sure how I was enjoying it.
I'm so tired. I haven't slept.
For nearly 3 months, I've had you people criticizing, analyzing, scrutinizing, picking apart my work, and I can't take it anymore. Now it's time for my payback. Now it's time for my revenge! Oh, I realize many of you may not know what I'm talking about, unless you've been following Geek Evolution 2 Reviews the Reviewers Contest, in which I am a contestant. So if you haven't done so yet, do yourself a favor and check it out at www.youtube.com/geekvolution. Okay, now where was I? Oh yeah, revenge! I've utilized a scientific method in order to determine which judge would be the perfect recipient for my unique brand of torture. Get out of there! So, science. Superhero Rewind is my favorite segment of Geekvolution's lineup. It's basically a weekly superhero movie review that Captain Logan does, with its stated goal to eventually include every single superhero-related movie ever made. But has he covered the 1949 Batman and Robin, or last year's animated Wonder Woman, like someone else? I didn't think so. But he has done 2005's Batman Begins, and this is the superhero rewind I've chosen to review today. I feel this one is somewhat important for a couple of reasons. It was one of the first superhero rewinds to feature the newly designed animated logo based on the flying text of the Superman movies. While a new cover does not necessarily a new product make, at the very least it's a milestone. The second more important reason is that it was the first superhero rewind to be made after YouTube released its time restrictions. So while most prior superhero rewind segments ran from 10 to 15 minutes, this behemoth clocks in at just under 25, and that does make it stand out from previous installments. So I guess I'll start out at the very beginning to mention the logo. While I miss the previous font and wall of movie posters that preceded it, that doesn't take away from how well and professionally it's done. I was quite impressed the first time I saw it. I might have personally preferred an intro that was more uniquely superhero rewind, but the overall presentation is a significant step up. The only technical complaint I have about it is the way the Starfield shifts when the intro becomes static for the spoiler alert warning. That sounds like a nitpick, and it really is, but it's one of those things that stands out only because of how well done the rest of it is. Being able to make that transition seamless would really help in perfecting the new intro sequence. For anyone who hasn't seen Superhero Rewind, it foregoes large amounts of humor or grand effects for simply a detailed analysis of the movie. That means that while there isn't anything in the way to distract from the real meat of the subject, there also isn't any crutch to fall back on, and nearly everything depends on the analysis that Logan is delivering. And he does a really great job of that. This review runs the gamut of, well, pretty much every theme and story point in the movie, be it the role of father figures in Bruce's life, how the Bat imagery plays into Bruce's motivation, and how both Batman and his villains use the recurring theme of fear to get what they want. A good analysis should get you thinking, hopefully in ways about the subject you haven't even considered before, and this does that in spades. I really like how his emphasis is on how the film works as a film. For works that are adaptations, which most superhero movies are, it's easy for the fanboy or fangirl to take over, judging a film not by whether it works as a separate entity, but in how it compares to or differs from its source material. But Superhero Rewind does a good job of judging a film mainly by its own merits. That's not to say that there isn't any room for outside comparison. People come to a place like this to get a fan's perspective. And really, any reviewer can speak of the film based on its own merits, but it does take a fan, albeit a grounded fan, to get to the heart of what makes that character in that world special. And that's why it really pleased me that Captain Logan, like a good superhero movie, keeps that balance between good film and good mythos. There are a few things I felt could have or should have been covered with a bit more depth, particularly in regards to how little much of the characters are delved into. Had this been a shorter analysis, I probably wouldn't feel this way, but this is a long review, and several topics are covered in such depth that a glossing over of major characters just feels out of proportion. Perhaps many would argue that, for example, Rachel Dawes doesn't warrant a dissection, but I would have preferred a little more time spent on, say, Lucius Fox. There's plenty of material to be discussed simply in the movie, but this is also a character that up to this point had largely been ignored in Batman adaptations, suddenly being put into a very large spotlight in a Batman continuity. And I'd say another missed opportunity is in his dissection of Batman allowing Ra's al Ghul to die. What is there is great, but as Logan's debating this, he completely fails to mention Bruce's interaction with the League of Shadows earlier in the movie, where his similar refusal to take a life still ends up indirectly killing dozens more. Tying that in probably would have really helped in his analysis, especially considering that his very next point mentioned the death of the fake Ra's al Ghul in that incident. This just felt like a particularly unfortunate elephant in the room that really could have been tied in or dealt with in a more significant way. As I said before, when you review in this style, everything hinges on the script. The visual element isn't going to make or break a review by any means, but that doesn't mean that it's not important too. Unfortunately, Superhero Rewind does use improperly scaled images, stretching them out so that the actors look unnatural. It certainly didn't diminish my enjoyment of the review, but if the intro gets a professional-looking makeover, I think it's time this should as well. A style like this also usually depends on relevant imagery's background to emphasize a point or mood. I can attest to how daunting it is to take dozens and dozens of good-looking screen caps and being foiled by capturing the one frame where someone's making a goofy face. And this review succeeds in that respect nearly all of the time, but there is at least one instance where a poor image choice just breaks the mood. It's hard for me to take an analysis of, but what I do that defines me, seriously, when it's accompanied by an image of what looks like Jerry Lewis wearing the Batman costume. What I remember most about watching this for the first time is near the end when Captain Logan apologized for this video being so long. It was at that point that I looked down at the time bar and found myself disappointed that it was ending so soon. And that is certainly the mark of a good video. So, unfortunately, I picked a Geekvolution video that didn't involve Vince in any way. So to make up for that, enjoy.